A lot of people take a lot of selfies, right? Now, don't worry, I'm not going to pick on you. Don't worry. And so, you know, I've seen a lot of your selfies. I have. I'll just put it that way. You know, we have that a bunch of stuff on Instagram, right? People make YouTube videos. Matter of fact, we do YouTube videos for New Life. And so what's the point? What's the point of the selfies, of Instagram? What's the point of you making YouTube videos? So what are you trying to accomplish? Right, think about it. Now, people say, well, you know, sometimes some people get rich doing that. You know, my YouTube video might go viral. So does pneumonia. But, you know, but see, and it's funny because people say, you know, you can make money on that. Of all the YouTubers that make money, it's like 1/1000th of a percent. It's just not very. So there's got to be more than just thinking that you're going to make a living on this and this kind of stuff. But the reason we do that is because we want to be famous. Everybody wants to be famous. People say, no, I don't want to be famous. Yes, you do. Everybody wants to be famous. So if somebody tells you that your name is in the newspaper, you go buy 5 papers. You give them to your friends. Your mama buys 10, right? You don't read the article, you scan it. There it is, there it is. You'll cut it out, you'll frame it, you'll put it in a scrapbook. And say, well, I don't want to be famous. Well, if you don't want to be famous, why are you counting the likes? Right? Why are you checking the comments on it? See, the truth is human nature. And it's not even a selfish thing. Human nature is we all want to be famous, right? Now, I'm going to throw this out there. Just think about this. Tell me if you recognize any of these names. Adlai Stevenson. Barry Goldwater. Not Barry Goldberg, Barry Goldwater. Hubert Humphrey. George McGovern. Walter Mondale. Michael Dukakis. Dude, what a name. Bob Dole. Now see, if you recognize any of those names, number one, you're old. And Jesus loves you. And at this stage, you don't want to take any chances, right? But see, all of these names, these are the names of men that have run for president of the United States between 1956 and 1996. Just some of them. All of these names managed to gather 40% of the vote of all Americans. All of these names are very, very famous people. They were on the lips of every person in the United States at that time. Their names were all over billboards and advertisements and media, and there was interviews and TV. So everybody, these guys were really, really famous. But see, here's the deal. Because these guys did not win the election, their fame was short-lived. So here's what I'm saying. So this is how it works. So few remember the famous. Few people remember the famous, but everybody thinks they want to be famous, but the truth is, it's not that we want to be famous. We just want our life to matter. We want the time that we spend here, the things that we do, we want it to make a lasting difference so that people go, you know what? At least they were here. At least they accomplished something. We don't want to be forgotten when it's all said and done, right? So to be seen, heard, known, and loved, that's what we're all hungry for. Okay, so to pull this around, there's a story in 2 Kings chapter 5. A guy by the name of Naaman, a really famous guy. He's a really famous guy at the time. And somehow Naaman contracted an infectious skin disease called leprosy. That's bad. That's bad. Because when you get leprosy, there's places on your skin that turns white, and it spreads, and pretty soon pieces start falling off. You go to shake somebody's hand, and they take it with them. You know. So eventually, leprosy killed people. So he knows if he doesn't do something about this. By the way, there's no cure at the time. And so it's like, wow, this is certainly a death sentence. So somebody told him that there was a prophet in Israel that could cure him. So this famous guy went to Israel, found this prophet's house, knocked on the door, and the prophet Elisha wouldn't even come to the door, but instead he sent his servant out to tell this really famous guy Naaman that he wanted him to go wash in the Jordan River 7 times. Now, just for perspective, the Jordan River is a murky, nasty body of water. It makes Lake Success look like Perrier. And so if somebody says, okay, you know, go down to Lake Success and drink a big glass of Lake Success, you're like, ew. So now here's the deal. So this famous guy Naaman, he's all butthurt. He's mad because, like, does this guy know who I am? What's with this guy? So he's mad, he's angry because this prophet had the nerve to didn't even come out and talk to him himself. And here's what he said. He goes, all he had to do is come over, just wave his hand over the sick part, and I'd be fine. And he wouldn't even do that. So he's all bent out of shape. And here's what it says, 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 12. It says, so he turned and went off in a rage. Then Naaman's servants went to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more when he tells you, wash and be cleansed? So here's what I'm getting out of this, right? So what if the small thing is the right thing? But because it's a small thing, you make a big thing out of it. I'm going to do that again just because I like it, okay? What if, now at this point, just don't look around because I'm talking to you, right? What if the small thing is the right thing, but because it's a small thing, you make it a big thing, right? Anybody think drama, right? So here's the deal. So now if what God is asking you seems unreasonable or seems beneath you, then what God has for you is probably above you. Okay? Because a lot of times, friends, God will ask us to do small things so he can be the big thing. Come on now, there's the message right there, right? Okay, so now to be fair to Naaman, everybody wants to be great. Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to think that, hey, I'm doing okay, right? But what if God wants you to do something small so that he can do something really big? Now here at New Life, this is a very diverse cross-section of our culture. I mean, you don't get more mixed up, and you can take that any way you want to. You don't get more mixed up than New Life, right? Okay? And so there's different backgrounds, different lifestyles, different ages, different ethnicities, different stages, different stories, right? And God has been using all of these different people, this cross-culture of Porterville, and doing phenomenal things in the life of people. See, it's because of you. Because of you, over 150 people were baptized into their faith in Christ last year, right? Because of you, more than 100 people gave their lives to Jesus. Because of you, more than 80 people have decided to start serving at New Life this year. Because of you, close to 4,000 people showed up for our Harvest Festival, while 120 of you served them and had them have a good time, right? Because of you, we've seen families restored. We've seen marriages put back together. We've seen broken people love. We've seen people get back on their feet. We've seen dozens of people overcome altering struggles because of you. Bodies have been healed. Babies that were not supposed to make it have been born. Joys come back. Peace is swept over. Hardened hearts have become soft again. Because of you, miracle after miracle. Not to mention the real-life connections to people and groups and gatherings and events. Serving teams, living life as new lifers because of you. So because of the small part each of us plays in the big stuff that God is doing in dozens of ways, we are changing our world. Way to go, New Life. Good stuff, right? Okay, so you see, the significance of our life is not that we're one of, but that we're part of. It's great to be one of, but isn't it better to be part of, right? Now here's the deal. The hard part of doing your part is when our best stuff is siphoned off by a whole lot of other stuff, right? How many of you guys know what I'm talking about? Well, there's that relational whack-a-mole, that kind of stuff. So there's a dozen other really important things, maybe even good things. But we really want to do our part. We all want to be famous. We want our lives to matter. But here's how this works. How do we do that? The short answer is don't give your best stuff to the wrong stuff. If you give your best stuff to the wrong stuff, then you won't have any best stuff for the right stuff. Now, I know I'm deep. Think about this just a little bit, right? Okay? So we give our best to the best parts. So it's actually about being generous. Being generous with praise relationally. Being generous with your love. Being generous with your joy. And being generous also with tangible places where we're generous with our ability, with our finances, when we're generous with our time. Not just in what we give away, but what we give ourselves to. See, generosity is not about what we do with the extra. Generosity is what we do with the everyday. That's what generosity is. So here's the deal. It's hard to be generous here when you've not been wise there. Right? How many of you guys know what I'm talking about? So I'd really like to, but, you know, I blew it all here. Right? So I'd really like to give, but, man, I bought $100 worth of lottery tickets because it was $3 million. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. So it's hard to be generous. So our ability to say yes in the right places really depends on our ability to say no in the wrong places. This isn't deep stuff. So now it's hard to be generous when we're tied to our time instead of the task. It's hard to be generous when we're tied to our availability rather than our best. It's hard to be generous when there's a limit rather than a portion. Now those of us, if you have ever been blessed, you know that to be generous means that as you're blessed, you bless others. That's the way it should work. Okay, now, because I'm a blessing to be a blessing. Now, okay, so why is this generosity thing a big deal? What makes it, why does God want my stuff? God doesn't want your stuff. God doesn't want your stuff to have you. It's that simple. Because sometimes we can get so guarded with that. Generosity is what breaks that curse. Watch this. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12. Here's what the Apostle Paul said. Everything is permissible for me. This stuff's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But I will not be mastered by anything. So just because I have it doesn't mean that it's in charge of me. So what happens when you're generous with everything, even relationally, when you're generous, you're not selfish. Wouldn't you just love to just turn to somebody sometimes and say, you're a selfish pig? And then if you add in the name of Jesus, it makes it okay, right? So a generous spirit frees me from being bound to those kind of things. So I master those things instead of those things mastering me, right? Okay, so now there's two stories in the book of John chapter 6. I'm just kind of winding this down. You guys doing okay? So there's two stories in John chapter 6 that really speak to the part that we play and what we're a part of, okay? So it's beginning in verse 5, and I'm going to kind of set this story. Beginning in verse 5, thousands of people have gathered to hear Jesus teach. There are thousands of people, and they've been with him all day long. They've traveled a really long ways. They're tired and they're hungry. Anybody know what it is to be tired and hungry? Some people call it cranky. We'll just call it tired and hungry, right? They're tired and hungry, okay? And so the need is overwhelming, but their resources is hopelessly lacking. Can anybody relate? The need is overwhelming, and the resources are hopelessly lacking. So Jesus asked a question that I think fits with us today. It's in John chapter 6, verse 5. I'm going to read this to you. Then Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, and he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? Okay, now here's how the question would work for people like us. What in the heck am I going to do with all these people? Anybody ever have unannounced company show up? Are they sitting with you today? You know, when unannounced, a whole bunch of people come up and they're like, hey, hey, good to see you. And you turn to the other person in your home and you go, what are we going to do? And have you ever tried to kind of like make up something to try to figure out how long they're going to stay? So, what are we doing later? Going home, I assume, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. Jesus says, all these people are coming to my house, thousands of people. I don't have the means to feed them. That's a great question. See, the need is overwhelming, but the resources are super limited. That describes us so well. So well. So when the need is overwhelming and the resources are super limited, what we need is a divine interruption into our life. Is anybody getting what I'm talking about? When we incorporate the divine into our lack, I'm telling you, that's when God does his best stuff. So here's what it says, verse 6, he said, he asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. You know, this stuff doesn't surprise Jesus. Jesus doesn't go, whoa, who saw that coming? He already knows. He already knows what he's going to do. Verse 7. Philip answered. I love this answer. It's hilarious. 8 months' wages wouldn't buy enough bread for each one of these to have just one bite. He goes, we could take all of our income and put it together. We couldn't even buy everybody a Skittle. We're not going to meet this need. And then the next guy makes it even worse. Another disciple, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up and said, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. Now, I think it's ironic that his solution was to volunteer somebody else's stuff. I mean, think about it. He's like, what are we going to do? This kid's got food. And then he says, well, but what is this among all of these people? So maybe what he was saying is that how ridiculous Jesus' request was. Feeding these people, he goes, look, dude, this is all we got. You're going to feed a family with a pack of Wrigley Spearmint gum. It's just not going to work. Now, see, here's what I think was going on there. I think rather than Andrew volunteering this boy's lunch, I think this boy stepped out of the crowd. I think when this boy heard what Jesus said, what are we going to do? When Jesus asked that question, that boy heard more than a question. That boy, I think, stepped in because something rose up in him where he said, you know what? This is my chance to be famous. Not for people to look and say, man, look at this kid. No, he said, this is my chance to take what I feel like is not nearly enough. And maybe God can take my small little portion and do something absolutely outrageous and turn it. Maybe a miracle can happen if I just offer up what I think is just not nearly enough. See, so I think that's what God is wanting to do in our lives. Because, see, sometimes we look at our minimal supply and we get frustrated because we think we can't respond. See, God is not asking for your minimum. He's asking you to be intentional on purpose, to live life open-handedly. So here's the way that this works. Jesus takes the not nearly enough, adds to it the faith of a nameless boy, lifts it up to the heavens, and that not nearly enough becomes way too much because they gathered up 12 baskets full of leftovers. Everybody say leftovers. 12 baskets full of leftovers, and they set in front of this boy. So now this boy that just had 5 little barley loaves and 2 fish, now he's got these 12 baskets surrounding him. He's like, whoa, this is crazy. He's overwhelmed, right? So that's why it's not what he does with the minimal, it's what he does with the intentional. Luke chapter 6, verse 38, Jesus says it this way, given it will be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. God will cause this to pour into your lap. See, you will never outgive God. And it's not that he gives back stuff. He gives back purpose. Yeah. Remember, everybody wants to be famous. Being famous is not about how much stuff you gather. Being famous is about how much difference you're making. We want to make a difference in the lives of our family. We want to make a difference in the lives of our friend. We want to make a difference in the life that we live. And if you have it boiled down to you just having a few more dollars in the bank, that's not going to make a difference. You'll be in the same category as Michael Dukakis. Yeah, if you think about that too long, it'll mess you up. Right? See, so it's not measured by our lack, it's measured by our love. That's really the thing. So listen, and what I'm telling you, it's not what we want from you, it's what we want for you that really matters. You will unlock something in you and your life that maybe you've never saw before. So fear holds back and faith steps forward. Yeah. See, maybe God is trying to take your hopeless and transform it into the miraculous. Right. As long as you are willing to unleash what you consider worthless. Which leads us to the second story. After everybody had eaten, after there's these 12 baskets full and this little boy's trying to figure out how am I going to get all this stuff home. Think about it. He brought it in a sack, now he needs a wagon. It's like, what? Can you imagine going home to his mom? Hey, Mom, I left with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Look what I got. Crazy. So after this, Jesus went off by himself, and he would do that. And the disciples got into a boat. Now here's what it says in John chapter 6, verse 16. And they got into a boat and set off across the lake. Everybody say across the lake. Where are they going? Okay, I know that was a hard test. Pay attention. Ready? They got into a boat and they set off across the lake. Where are they going? Okay, so how do you know when you're going to get there? See, I love you guys are smart. You got this, right? So they're going across the lake, right? Okay, so by now it was dark and Jesus had not yet joined them. Did you catch that? Jesus had not yet. Everybody say not yet. So if you say, man, I don't understand what it feels like it's dark. It feels like it's hard. Now, what that means is Jesus has not showed up yet, but Jesus is going to show up. Why? Because you're going across the lake. And if you are not across the lake, here's what I'm telling you. Keep after it. Even though the night gets dark, even though the wind is blowing, even though the waves rise up, you've got to keep going. Now, here's the problem. When it gets dark, when the winds of adversity are against you, when the waves are breaking over the front and you feel like you're going down, the temptation to turn back is huge. Let's go back to where it was safe. Let's go back to where things were working. Let's go back to where we were. I'm comfortable with that. I like that. That's good. So why do we have to cross the lake anyway? What's the deal? Jesus is not even here yet. Can't he just find us like here on the dirt instead of at the bottom of the ocean? Right? See, we try to take steps of faith. We come in place of adversity. So here's the deal. But this is why moving forward is not situational. It's intentional. You got to do it by design. So if you're facing the temptation to turn back, could I ask you a question? If you're facing the temptation to give up and turn around, go back to where you were. If you're facing the temptation to go back to where that is safe because God is moving you into something different, I have a question for you. You ready? Where were you headed anyway? Where are you headed? Are you there? What has God promised you? What have you dreamed about? What is the goal that you have in mind? What did God drop into your heart? Where is it that you really want God to show up? Do you remember where you were headed? Because if you allow the circumstances to turn you around, my friend, here's the deal. You will miss your destination. And you will always regret it. Got your 2 pennies? See, some of you guys, you wouldn't take the 2 pennies. Now you're feeling bad. And it's funny because I was talking to the welcome team, and they said, yeah, somebody said that they have their own 2 cents. That's kind of the problem. Right? How many of you guys know that's a problem sometimes when somebody has their own 2 cents worth? Right? If there's a really great time, nobody's really paying attention anyway, just kind of elbow somebody. This is just hilarious. And you're like, yeah, you gave me your opinion this morning, and it really sounded like you were chewing me out. We've already seen your 2 cents worth, but watch this. This is in Mark chapter 12, verse 42. Jesus and the disciples are watching people put money into the treasury. They're watching people give. Some people put in extravagant gifts, and people are like, oh, hey, wow, wish I could do that. Then this widow comes up, and she drops in 2 copper coins. Just 2 copper coins. You know how much, you know what you could buy with this? Not a stinking thing. Right? Matter of fact, at my stage of the game, because of my vast experience, if I see a penny on the ground, I keep on walking. Say, what? And yeah, I am not working that cheap. Because in my life, I discovered that gravity is not my friend. Right? But see this lady come up, and she dropped in 2 copper coins. And Jesus said, do you guys realize what you just witnessed? They go, yeah, this. She put in her 2 cents worth. Now, what wasn't her 2 cents worth? Jesus said that's all she has. Listen, if you're struggling with your faith, if you're struggling with relationships, if you're struggling with your old life calling louder to you than it has in a long time, I wonder if you put your 2 cents worth in. I wonder if you're giving it your all. I wonder if you're giving it your best. See, sometimes your best is spread way out this, and the reason that this is not working because your best is everywhere. How about, here's an idea, how about if you want something to work, how about if you put your 2 cents worth in? How about if you give it your all? How about if you put in your best? I think if you put your best into your faith, I think your faith will get strong. I think if you put your best into relationships, I think your relationships will get stronger. I think if you put your best into living your new life, your old life won't be near as loud if you put your best into it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? See, here's the deal. I think you want to be famous. I think you want your life to matter. And I think God has invested in you huge stuff. Now get this. Guys like Michael Dukakis, Hubert Humphrey. Boy, don't you know he learned how to fight. These guys, everybody's forgotten. As famous as they were, everybody forgot. But guys like Peter, James, John, Andrew, Philip, thousands of years later, isn't it funny that we're still talking about them? Isn't it funny we're still reading their story over and over and over again? See, these guys are really famous. Not because of who they were, but because the part that we play doesn't even compare to what we're a part of. You see what I'm saying? See, if you want to be famous, put in your 2 cents. Be a part. I'm gonna put the cookies in the bottom shelf. I know it's supposed to be finishing up. You guys okay? It's raining outside. Right? You want to stay here as long as you can. I want the relationship between me and Loretta to be famous. I want the love that I have for my daughter, son-in-law, and my grandson, I want that to be famous. I want my relationship with Jesus Christ, I want that to be famous. I want my new life to be so famous that nobody even remembers my old life. See, it's not the part that I play, it's what I'm a part of that makes a difference. Anybody in this house want to be famous? Anybody want to be famous for the life that you live? Let's be famous. Don't stop until you've crossed over. Could I get you to bow your heads and close your eyes for just a moment, please? Of course, being famous is not about your name in the paper. It's not about your video going viral. It's not about getting 10,000 likes. Being famous is about, you know what, I want to make sure that the life that I live is remembered in the way that it's supposed to be. So here's the question today. Are you in a place where your relationships are struggling? Are you in a place where your faith is really weak? Are you in a place where your old life is getting louder and louder? If I'm talking to you today, just raise your hand up real quick and put it right back down. Say, man, Pastor Dave, my relationships are struggling. I'm having a hard time. If you're in a place of saying, you know, my faith feels so weak, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm slipping. If you're in a place where your old life seems to be calling loud to you, you don't know what to do. Come on, show me your hand. Come on, just real fast. Come on. Thank you. Dozens of people, dozens. Today's the day when you're famous. Today, you're putting in your 2 cents worth, your all, your best life. Could y'all stand here this morning, please? See, the lie that you've been telling yourself is the life that you're living is too insignificant. 5 small loaves and 2 small fish. You don't understand what God can do with your not enough. You don't understand that God can take your weakness and turn it into great strength. You don't understand that God can take your doubt and turn it into great faith. You don't understand that God can take your not enough and turn it into way too much. What if you go home with 12 baskets full of faith? What if you go home with 12 baskets full of love or joy? What if you go home a way better person than you walked in here with? That's what you offer to God. That's what you offer. So we're going to pray a prayer. Pastor Robert's going to pray a prayer with you guys. This is the kind of prayer we're praying. We're going to take what is not enough, what seems to be not nearly enough, and just like Jesus, we're going to raise it up to the heavens. God's going to take the faith of a nameless boy or you. He's going to add it to what he presents to God. And with that, he's going to change the world. See, I want God to blow you away. I want the next time I see you for you to just go. Right? Because that's the God I serve. I'm famous. Not because of this. I'm famous because of him. He knows my name. What? Yeah. He, the King of heaven, the Prince of the universe, knows my name. Oh, yeah. I'm not. He not only knows my name, he wrote it on the palm of his hand so he don't forget it. He knows I'm famous. Anybody in this house famous? Man, you can take that anywhere.